I'm excited about this. I'm going to do a little introduction. Rob has done his homework. I've done some of my homework. Oh, we'll show it in a second. And what I want to do is I want to take some of what Shrikant just said, because from the very first time that I met Shrikant in person, I think I think it was hello, and he introduced himself, and then he asked me about Louis Sullivan. Kindergarten chats. But we each had, when we first met, come at this in a different way. For me, I was coming at it from the side of architecture. And as Shrikant's just explaining, to him, and this is true of Sullivan, it's coming at it from, this is a way of living. So I think that going through the drawings and the plates will help us understand that approach at in your hands level, to get it down to that. So some of the things that Shrikant just mentioned here are creating and transforming and turning into living. And that is exactly what these plates, do you want to pull up the one?
Yeah.
The first plate.
Hold on.
It's right here.
Okay. I don't have my reading glasses, so I'm going to try.
You have to click on share.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the top section of the first plate. And as we look at this, I want to read the very first paragraph of these 4-page essay, the inorganic and the organic. While looking at these first 10 little drawings on the top of the page, this is what Sullivan writes. By the word inorganic is commonly understood that which is lifeless or appears to be so, as stone, the metals, and seasoned wood, clay, or the like. But nothing is really inorganic to the creative will of man. His spiritual power masters the inorganic and causes it to live in forms which his imagination brings forth from the lifeless, the amorphous. He thus transmutes into the image of his passion that which of itself has no such power. Thus, man in his power brings forth that which hitherto was non-existent. So in these first 10 plates, these first little 10 drawings, we see Sullivan starting from the little square block of stone, perhaps, in number 1. Each step, he is taking another dive down into the stone and creating something from something that is inorganic, to number 10 or even number 11 on the bottom of the page, into something that's very, very organic. He has put life into this stone. So our assignment here was to take the time to go through these drawings and attempt to follow his footsteps or his fingertips in seeing what he did and how he did it. And what do you learn from doing that? So I'm going to turn the floor over here to Rob, who doesn't have a background in drawing, and took the effort to do this. He did all 10.
I did all 10. I did not do the final one. I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay, so we're going to let you walk through what you learned.
So I actually went ahead and I did them all sort of on top of each other. So instead of having, having them separate like he has them here, I just started with 1. I added stuff for 2. I added stuff for 3 on top of that, etc. But I did photograph them as I went along, or scanned them as I went along. So I want to just make sure this is visible here. So here's my first one, just the blank. And again, this is the organic coming out of the inorganic.
We cannot see it. You need to share those.
Did I stop my share?
You might have stopped share.
No, you're sharing just the image from Louis Sullivan's book.
Okay, you need to stop sharing.
We stop share and go back into share. Well, okay, I'll show you what I did. So I did all of them. We'll go back in, but I did all of them on top of each other, and I did with plate 10 there. And then now let me go back and show you the prop. But I did. Here we go. Does this show up now? The blank square?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it now. All right, so I started just a blank square, and this is the organic coming out of the inorganic. So it's the lifeless, it's the blank, it's the amorphous, he calls it. Well, this is amorphous. It is a, he puts the little shading in on the sides, which I tried to duplicate because this is the idea that this is the totally unshaped stone. One presumes it's stone or wood or whatever. And then I did the next stage, which is you put in just this little box with the, you've gone down a level on the front. So you have a little shade line there to indicate the dimension of it. And then the next thing you do is you add another sort of box within the box. Again, more shade lines off to the side here to indicate the depth. But then you've introduced this curving element in here. So that's a little bit more of a organic form or organic-like form with a little bit of curve to it, but also pretty straightforward. So that's number 3, I guess. And here's number 4. And let's see, what have we done here? Oh yeah, we've put another, so you have the original stone or the original material, whatever it is. You have a step down there for this level, and you have another step down added to it to make this level, and then a step down within there. So you've got, very multiple levels going on here, and you're taking it deeper and deeper and giving it more depth. Still not that complicated. Okay, so here we have added
the little ears.
Oh yeah, we added the little ears here. So we carved out, let me see what we had before. Yeah, so we carved out into one of these layers above, we carved out a little spots where, we have deeper spots here that go down. And that gives a little more depth, and you have these little connections up above and below. And then the next one, it's here, around here, that Sherri pointed out something to me that I thought was interesting. Actually, it's the next one that shows it best, because what we did is there's sort of a line here indicating this is separate, but I think as we come along here, we start to get rid of that line. I don't know if it's here or the next one that I think I didn't get rid of that line, and I should have. Okay, so if I had been doing this properly and had paid more attention, I would have gotten rid of this line here. Because, something that Sherri talks about, though, is that we're starting to get a lot of depth, but we're also getting some interesting perspective things. So if you take out that line, it kind of appears as if this part and this part are at the same level. But then when you get across here, this overlaps this, which makes it look like it's at a higher level. So there's kind of, she put an MC Escher kind of quality to it. And that was the first thing that sort of blew my mind about actually drawing this, was realizing the way in which he's playing with that depth and proportion. And that sense of depth. And if you were actually carving this, you'd have to reconcile that and say, wait a minute, how does this go over here? But it's the same level here. How would you work that out? Okay, so here he has, what has he added here?
Inner square.
Oh, here he has added the inner square
at a diagonal
to give it adds a livelier step, that you have a diagonal going. So you have another, it's not just a bunch of squares, it's squares now going at different angles to each other and adding more a sense of liveliness and a sense of complexity. And then the next stage here is, let's see. We've taken taken this simple square we had in the middle, and we've added a little bevel on each side to give it, again, a greater sense of depth and complexity, more elements going together. And then in this one, we added these little ears, or these little, what would you call those? Little bow ties, I called them. And here's where I actually think I got them wrong. You're going to see them better in Sherri's version, or if you go back to Sullivan's. His are a little fuller. I think what happened is I made this center square a little too small. I should have made it slightly larger. So what happened is that I had way too much space here where I was putting the bow ties. And they flare out more, they fill more of the space. And I think mine don't look organic enough. Now that I look at it now, mine don't look alive enough. Whereas his look more like, I think more like a seed pod or something. They look more like it's the process of a growing thing happening. But the next one, he does something, he starts to do something, now this one I found interesting, is there are two things I noticed you here. Does is a little extra sort of reveal down here. So he's giving more depth to these side parts here. And then the other thing he does is he adds these little, if you see at the base of these grounded pieces that come in from the sides, he gives this little like almost root end of it. Like it's the roots of a tree or something like that you're seeing. So again, giving more sort of, it's starting to grow. It's starting to become more and more organic, more and more plant-like, although it's not really any specific plant. And this goes back to what I was saying last time about how it's like he has, he wants to take something that is inorganic, something that's geometrical and made out of stone, but then make it grow as if it were a plant, but without copying any specific plant. And then the other thing he's done here is he's added a little sort of picture framing, fine lines are on the outside here, which he's going to do something with in the next one. And here's where I think we're only down to 10. All right. So I thought I saw him do
circle.
Oh, he has a circle in the middle. That's the first thing. He also, I thought he added little things here, but actually I'm not so much sure that that's in his, but maybe what I did. He adds a little, he connects these out a little bit better, emphasizes these little root ends a bit more.
These get taller.
And these these points that used to come out and just sort of stop, now they sort of come out and they connect in to the inner circle. So again, these things are growing together more. And you get the same sort of also sense of, it's a little unclear. If you actually were to build this or have somebody carve it, you'd really have to figure out, okay, what level is everything on? Do these connect because they're on the same level as the circle? Is it lower down? What exact level is everything? And then he added this sort of these dots or the squares around the side that look a little more like maybe they're like a dental molding or something like that. Dental meaning tooth-like. That's a very typical classical Greek style of doing a molding that has these little squares in it that look like teeth coming down. It's called a dental molding. And so he's added that. So again, he's adding more and more sort of organic touches, more and more things sort of growing and growing out of each other on this. Now I had thought, okay, I'll do this and then I'll go to plate 11, the one that he has the
show the illustration.
If I can,
you have to probably stop sharing.
Probably stop sharing and go back. So if we go back to share screen. Well, actually, the problem I have to.
This one right there.
Oh, okay, good. I've got it there. If we go back to this one, is it not showing up?
No, that's your drawing. I think you have to close it out.
Okay, I never saved that one properly. Okay, so we go back to this one. I got to save them. So if you zoom into this, if I can zoom into this, I'm not sure I can zoom into it. But you see this one, he goes from plate 10 to plate 11. Now, one thing you notice about plate 11, I thought, okay, he adds a couple more things that is the next step of the plate. Well, this isn't really plate 11. If he were to show you all the steps that he was doing, this is like plate 25. Because you can see he's taken, the little spots in the corner where we just had a little square. He's now got, 4 squares within that square with a cross piece and then round pieces. Then the round pieces are joined to something. So he's done, what he did with this whole thing in plates 1 through 10, he's now done with every little part of, and the little dental moldings we had around the outside have now become this sort of reeded band going to big squares with circles and other things. And a seed germ, little seed pods in the middle. And then this other square with little leaf shapes or whatever. And this, so he's taken this, of course, to the nth degree, way beyond what he has shown us. So Sherri may attempt to do that. I am not going to. But the big things I got out of actually,
you want to stop sharing?
Yeah, big things I got out of actually doing this. Let me stop the share. Is the sense of the way he's playing around with the depth and bringing things forward and pushing them back, and sometimes bringing some things forward and pushing them back at the same time, with this sort of MC Escher kind of way where you get this weird perspective. You don't really know what's going on. And also the way that he has this idea of like taking, a growing plant where you have a stem that then produces other stems, or a leaf that starts to come out and then the leaf develops more detail and it splits apart and it does these things. He's taking that idea of sort of the organic growth and development and just applying it to every single shape that's in here. And so how can we organically develop it in the next step? So it was interesting to do that step by step and see how he really does it. And apparently I missed one or two things.
Don't worry about
Now Sherri says that I have no background in drawing, and that's absolutely true. So now you're going to see somebody who does have a little bit more background than me.
Well, I didn't have any of my drafting equipment, so I didn't have a T-square.
So what she's going to do right now is there's this thing. My sister spent a couple of years in Japan as an exchange student, and she said there's this thing where when a Japanese woman, when she serves a meal, she'll say it's like a ritual thing. They don't necessarily mean it, just the ritual thing you say to be polite. She'll say, "I apologize for this very terrible food." And so Sherri's about to apologize for this very terrible food, and then she's going to show you her drawing.
Well, what I was going to say is Rob took pictures of his, so you can see them up close, and we have rigged up the plate that I drew mine on. Since Shrikant won't let me see his copy of the folio, I decided I needed to create my own. So I went digging through my old college supplies, drafting supplies, and I found they're called Strathmore boards. They're about 16th. They're thick, all cotton rag boards, super, super smooth. And I used them in college for all different kinds of drawing assignments, and man, it was an expensive way to do classes.
It should be noted that when she went to college, they had CAD programs that were starting to come in, but they were pretty, expensive. They were different. You had to have a pretty powerful. Computers were not widely available. It was just starting to come in, and she learned the old way, which was drawing everything out by hand or with simple tools on a board. It was
a really, I like to call it the wax on, wax off. If you all remember the approach from Karate Kid, a really, really simplified, bring you very down to the basics kind of drawing class. And it was about not figure drawing, but architectural drawing. And so we did some really, which seems bizarre to other people, we did some crazy things. Like we would take big 30-inch wide pieces of paper. We would learn how to sharpen a pencil, because how to sharpen a pencil was like,
it's not how everybody else sharpens.
No, it isn't. And then we would take for, an hour at a time, where we would have to take this 30-inch wide piece of paper and start at the top and draw a line all the way across. No rulers, nothing, just freehand. And then come down a 1/4 inch and draw another line all the way across the board. And then down another, and then so it's sort of like classical point ballet drawing technique. It's that side of thing. And we had to do things like you had to learn how to sharpen your pencil, but then you had to learn how to rotate the pencil as you drew the line so that the line wouldn't get thinner or thicker as you went along. So there's a lot of really intense training that went into the architecture program that I went to, but they really focused on, you need to draw in order to understand how it works. How a detail of a building works, or in this particular case, how Sullivan is taking this inanimate, inorganic block of stone, I think it's stone, and digs down into it and makes it look like it has its own life force to it. And he talks in it doesn't show in mine, but because I didn't write the words in it, but on his illustrations, underneath the first 5 blocks of stone, he writes development of a blank block through a series of mechanical manipulations. And then the second one, underneath the second line of drawings, he says, which illustrate man's initial control over materials and their destiny. So we have Rob's other camera set up.
Yeah, should I switch?
Yeah, you have to let me know, because I won't be able to see if I'm pointing at things that people can see.
Yes,
are they showing in the right order for you guys, or are they showing backwards?
They're showing the right order.
Okay, so the blank block should be on the far left.
Yes.
So it mirrors it back to us, because that's how
So
Zoom works. But
that.
yeah.
So we start over here with this blank block, and it's a really, I'm going to walk you through this, because if anybody started and didn't finish, or if you did it but didn't really appreciate the assignment, or you're thinking now about doing it again, I'm going to give you some tips on how to do this so that hopefully you'll all jump in. This is really good assignment. So when you have this big block of stone, what Sullivan is doing is he is planning that in this upper left-hand corner, the sun or light is shining, and it's raking across the surface. So you're always going to get shadows to the bottom and to the right of everything that you draw. So every time he goes down a plane, you're going to get another shadow line that's identifying that plane, because if you don't have light, you can't see what's happening. So that's what's happening with this first block. And then the second block here, as Rob says, he pushes this plane down by this little tiny bit, which is why you get the shadow line there. And then he pushes it another down and carves out this almost four-leaf clover approach. And we'll notice this, you noticed it when Rob did it. He starts these little curves as you go on. And I did this, honestly, I didn't do this on purpose, but I've looked at these drawings so long that I kind of know, I think subconsciously, where he's going. So as I drew these one after another, subconsciously, I started elongating these little pieces as we went along.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that I had done that until I was down about this approach. So, so when you get to this part, again, this one is sort of that four-leaf clover. It's got some depth to it, which you can see with the shadow lines. And these sides don't have shadow lines because the light is shining on them. And then this is where the tricky part starts, is when he brings it to your number 4, he pushes another plane down. And on number 4, it feels right. It's just one plane below this four-leaf clover plane. So you've got the block, and then you've got this outline in here that's got the outline of the four-leaf clover. And then he's pushed deeper in to a square underneath. But this is where things get really Sullivan-esque. And you have to remember, Sullivan's father was Irish. And so Sullivan must have grown up with that Celtic ornamentation where things really intertwine, a lot like we saw with Rupali showing us the top of the hall, where the ornament really intertwines a lot. And did I bump something?
No, I'm just checking with.
And
Playing
with
with the light.
number 5 here, that's when Sullivan really starts doing that intertwining, as Rob said, that Escher quality. And so we have this plane, this is that first plane down. Rob just fell off his chair. I'm gonna try not to laugh. We'll just continue as he gets off the floor. So this plane here, that is this first step down, that's forming this four-leaf clover, you'll see that it comes in on these little ears to this square below. But at the corners, it's level with this plane, but at these four-leaf clover insides, this is above and that's below. So you have a real twisting happening with this square form under there. And so my guess is that if you started 1, 2, 3, 4, and then was like, what's going on? And then it becomes really difficult. If you're trying to go through it in a very logical, methodical, reasoning way, but you have to let the plant form grow. And that's when you have to let go of that, where is this and where is that, and let the growth happen. And that's when you start getting from 5 down here to 6. Now you have that same approach. You still have in the corners, they're up the same plane, and in these peaks, they're at different planes. And that's really fascinating and physically impossible, but it's going somewhere. And that's what we start seeing at this next one, where he starts bringing in this lattice pieces. that kind of come across. You make these little triangular shapes. And that's where he puts in these little seed pods. These little, they're almost like little fan shapes that almost stretch between each of them. And then you notice I have already elongated these completely non-conscious. They just happened. And then when you get into here, now you start having this growth, like Rob said, a tree pattern. You have like a root system that comes from this outer branching and grows into this inner square, which eventually in this case becomes the inner circle. And then you really get this sort of three-dimensional curving that happens on this interior surfaces. They start doing this kind of undulating surface, and that's how you resolve this weird thing that happens in the corners and in these peaks. When you start having, that's Sullivan's dissolving of the stone and into a plant form. So if you notice down in the bottom, I don't know if you can even see that there. I have on this board marked out the big square for number 11, which, like Rob said, is really more like 21 or maybe more than
30. I'm
Maybe
looking at
30.
it. I'm looking at it as 35.
And I will try to work on that. I've been really busy in the last few weeks. I've got a couple projects that are ending. So hopefully before we are done, I can unveil the bottom block, which is going to take a fair bit of drafting time to do. But let's go back to Sullivan's number 11, if Rob can sit without falling.
Okay, so I have to go back to share screen. Yeah, okay.
So and I don't know if you can pull in. Can you pull in on that any closer?
Just hold on for a second. I need to remove the pin. Okay, there you go.
Okay,
Well, there's a zoom in button.
Zoom in.
Yeah, let's try that one more time.
Okay, how's that?
Okay, so you notice here that we still have that circle in the middle and the diamond shape in the middle and that sort of latticing at the corners and that little tree branch that comes in, but it has become something entirely different by this stage. So this is a fair bit of drafting, yes. And
well, that's why he only did a quarter of it.
He did almost a half.
Yeah, like 3/8.
Yeah, but this is what we can unshare now. This is what Sullivan is talking about in making that with powers of man, you have that ability of creating. And in this case, he's taking whatever this isn't just about.
Sorry to interrupt, Sherri. Can you bring the camera back to you folks?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay. Rob's working on that.
Go ahead.
There we go. Hi. So Sullivan is trying really to show you in the language that he speaks, ornament, and most often he would be doing this. This would be in probably red sandstone, like at the Wainwright building. That's where we really start seeing this kind of carving into the stone and making it lifelike, plant-like for him. But this isn't just about ornament. The text clearly shows that. So what I'd like, if we'll talk about this in a second, for those of you that did it, I'd like to hear what your experience was. For those of you who didn't or got stopped at some point, I'd like to hear where you got stopped and why. But I'd like for you to maybe try again, if you didn't, to try this with that and a couple of tips in mind, but also to think of this not just as I'm creating ornament for a building, but that you're thinking of this as the seed germ, as an idea that grows into something else through these little individual steps, one upon another, and slowly into something else. So my next homework assignment, if you haven't done this one, after doing that, think about doing it with your own idea, starting with a block and creating your own seed idea, and where does that take you as you carve into that block? If you really don't like drawing, I suppose you could do it with a block of clay or something like that, but that's a whole nother level. Shrikant, did you do it?
I did something, but let me just get Rupali's comments on it first. Then I will go and give my comments, and then we will invite anybody else who wants to give comments. Rupali, would you like to comment?
Sherri, you did a fantastic job on explaining the plates. Very beautifully done. And Rob, congratulations on your drawings. Well done.
I got the the A for effort.
You did a good job.
You did. They look good.
I surprised myself. I thought I wouldn't do half as good as this.
So there is this book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think you can draw, I highly recommend that book, because you can actually draw. And it teaches you how to look at things. But going back to the plates, taking that inorganic block of stone to making it lifelike through the process, I think, Sherri, you explained it very, very well. It's somewhere around the point of 5 and 6 where life starts to come into that that block. Again, I like that it's limited by its geometry. And in Montessori, just like Louis Sullivan has form follows function, Montessori says limits within freedom within limits. And I feel that it's great to have the limits of the geometry, and then you have the freedom to make the shapes within that, and you're exploring. So I enjoyed that. It reminded me of stone carvings in Indian temples. And I think that's probably what I'm going to be talking about next in the next presentation. You can, when you do this exercise, so when I did this exercise, I could actually feel that there was this process of forging or carving or making as you go from one step to the next step. And that when you're doing this activity, you can actually see that life emerging in it. So thank you for that homework. It was wonderful. One thing we do at school is we give students a block of soap, and the Dove soap is very soft, and you give them some tool to kind of pick at it, and they'll draw, it's easy to carve in that. So if anybody wants to try to carve this, you can use a block of Dove soap, and then and use a sharp tool to carve.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So
how big did you draw yours, Rupali?
Mine are small. I try to keep them all as the same size of the prints. Yeah, and I did it with pen. So I realized that was not a good idea, because I couldn't go back and erase. I was doing with pen and ink. So I'm going to try.
Pencils first.
Yeah, I'm going to try drawing it on a bigger piece just to see. I liked Rob's idea that instead of doing one square, I just do it as layers on one of each other. So,
yeah, I think that's a lot less.
You have to have the eraser though, because he has you draw something in, and then he has you take that line out. Yeah, so you can't do it in pen.
No,
cumulative.
Rob probably drew his about 4 by 4 square,
4 by 4.
and I think that's a good size. Mine are drawn because I was going to do this whole board. So they're more like 2.5 inches square, which you need a really sharp, fine pencil to get some of that fine little detail in there. But so draw it bigger. And I think Rob's approach of layering it is a good way to, again, with an eraser.
I do like the idea that since, Shrikant won't let you have his copy, that you just
Make
create
my own.
plates, make all the plates for yourself. Why
create
not?
your own. Sherri, when you were talking about how you had to draw those lines and sharpen, so that's exactly how we learned in India too, in architecture, and to roll the pencil so that you get the same thickness across. Now what I do with students is I actually give them paint brushes and we go left to right with watercolors, and they're learning how to control and regulate their strokes. So we do thick lines and thin lines, and it just becomes, even just watercolor lines on a piece of paper look very beautiful because it's
Yeah.
and yeah, we have mechanical pencils now. So for anybody who wants to try with really fine strokes, I think a mechanical pencil would be good for such drawing.
That's a good idea too. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank
Can
you.
can I just read one paragraph from kindergarten chats? Because I think, this is what Louis Sullivan is saying. Nature furnishes the materials, and you have but to use them with intelligence and feeling. All geometric forms are at your disposal. They are universal. It is for you to utilize them, to manipulate them, to transmute them with feeling and intelligence. Engineering science has substantially solved all problems of construction. The industrial arts, the so-called fine arts, mechanical skill, craftsmanship are at your disposal. The organized building arts, transportation, communication are at your disposal. Language is at your disposal. Nature's manifold expressions of function and form are at your disposal. What more do you need as a medium of expression? The rest is up to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Rupali. All right, Sherri. So I have to now answer my question, and then we'll go to Penny. So Sherri, what I did was I cheated. Okay, I cheated in so many different dimensions. Okay, number one, I cheated because I did the exercise that you gave last time, and I also did the exercise that you gave today.
Okay.
Well, I did not know that you would give the exercise, but I did that. The other constraint is that my drawing ability is much lower than Rob's. Okay, so I had to operate with that as a base. Okay, I
don't believe that because I've seen your drawings, Shrikant.
Well, that's my evaluation of because what happens is it hurts my mind if I don't do a good job. It does that loop has to be good enough. Okay, otherwise it doesn't work. So my drawing ability is horrible for this purpose. Second, the third part is that then say, okay, given these constraints, okay, that I actually want to do this exercise. I want to do both these exercises, one that Sherri has not actually even thought about yet, okay? But I want to do all of that with very limited capability, which I am not happy with, okay? But at the same time, I try to do what Sullivan is suggesting, okay? How do I do that? So that's what I try to solve, okay? So first is that I cannot do anything that I don't care about. If I'm drawing something, unless I really care about what I'm drawing, I can't do it. So I don't like squares. So I've been working with triangles, thanks to Buckminster Fuller, because that is the basic shape. So I said, okay, I have to use triangles. And then I have to adapt everything that Sullivan is going to do in those 10 for triangles. Now I know that my ability is not very good, so I'm going to just give it a best shot and do all the steps. I'm not going to try to get the details. I'm going to go through that exercise once through, just trying to mechanically follow the steps. Okay. But I know that's not the right thing to do, but I have to at least see what he's saying, and maybe I will get something from it, and then I will do the same in the next step. Okay. I have to figure out what to do in the next step. So I will just give you the results. I don't need to give you the whole sequence. I did not keep the whole sequence. I went ahead and did that. Okay. I decided that I did not want to, this was first, so I didn't want to spend more than like 20 minutes on it. So this is what I did first. So this is like the first version.
Oh, cool.
Kind of taking every step. I very carefully looked at what was being done at every step. And I said,
can you hold it back up?
Yeah. Let me see here. I tried to do everything that he was doing and just kept on saying, okay, what would be the version of it for triangle? And I tried to do something similar. Also, I tried to judge what would look good. So I'm kind of modifying whatever he's suggesting.
Mhm.
And I was just terribly disappointed with it. Okay. So then I said, okay, so there are a couple of things here, okay, that are fundamental. One is that it is being done outside in. You're saying, this is what I'm trying to decorate. This block is what I'm working with. So you have to always do outside in. You're saying, this is the world I'm transforming and making it live. What do I make from it? So to always go outside in. Okay, so that is Sullivan's principle. Now, my mind, for me to draw something and that kind of works for me, it has to be far more systematic. I need to know, like, for example, I don't know why Sullivan did those steps. Okay, if I don't know why he did the steps, I'm not going to be able to do that and make it live. Okay, I don't know how to do that. Okay, I know that. So what I did was that I tried to start with the triangle and now do the second exercise that you gave, okay, of saying now use your, whatever you want to do in order to do that. And this is the result of it.
Oh, nice.
Hold it up again. We can't talk while we're looking at it.
Hold it up again.
Let me do one thing. Let me just pin myself so it remains there. Give me a second. Okay. Let's see. Let me hold it steady. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So
you know what it looks like to me, Shrikant?
Yeah.
It looks like you're looking up at the branching of a tree.
Yes. Yes. So you will notice that this is a fractal. This is basically, there are two steps to it. One is a fractal kind of just going outside in with diagrams such as, something like, let me just see if I can bring it up here. So this is something that I've worked on before. Let me see here. Nope. Just a second. So I just want to show you the simple version of it. So it is like this. Now this is a color version of it. So you have, each triangle is being divided. Each triangle is being divided into 4 triangles, and those into 4. So that's just kind of fractal, right?
Yeah.
Then the other core principle of Louis Sullivan is the idea of radial movement. Okay, that radial movement, that's like, it's going from the edge, the energy flowing towards the center, and from center, energy flowing out. So basically, I did the fractal of it. So I want to show you the fractals here. You can see that this is a triangle, right?
Yep.
If I cover all of this here, see, this one looks exactly the same. Okay, I go and cover this much, it looks exactly the same. Okay, I go further and cover it up to here, it looks exactly the same. Okay, so that's the fractal nature. But the other thing I've added to what is generally not added in fractals is the radial movement. But the radial movement, you can see it's like a tree growing up. I decided to just use pencils, so I didn't use a different color. So for example, if I do the this version, let me see if I can show it to you here. So if I were to do it in color, it's like this. It goes out like that. Let me see. Yeah. So that would be the kind of that's kind of my version of it. And then again, thanks to Bucky, I found that 2D is not good enough. You can get some special insights by doing 3D things. And go back. So, and of course, I don't have the ability to produce anything like that in 3D. So I, again, cheated. I've got reached out and found like a 3D printer per place that could do this for me.
Ah,
So this one is a tetrahedron. This is called Sierpinski's tetrahedron. But you can see it's again the same thing, but now in 3D. Right?
oh,
So
that's fantastic.
you have the tetrahedron here, the big one. But if you look at just this much, it is exactly the same. Same is analogous to it. You cut it up to here, it's the same. You cut it up to here, it's the same. You cut it further down right to the tip here, it's the same. And it's all like that. Okay, and it has a beauty of its own.
Definitely.
And if you look at, and if you take, for example, if you look at some of this, like you can actually connect the center to all these edges. Now, I couldn't find anybody who has done that, but that would be the thing that I would really like. You take the center. This is something that Tom Miller, who did things here, he calls it the skeleton of a figure. So if we were to do a skeleton of this, so what I'm doing here in my diagrams here, just a second here, you see here, so I've done the outside. It's basically called Sierpinski's triangle. So I've done Sierpinski's triangle, and then I've put skeleton in there. And then you can actually remove the triangle. And actually that is very much like a tree growing.
Yes, it is.
And then everything else is like little leaves on it. So you kind of emphasize. I wouldn't completely remove it. I would just emphasize it. Right here, I'm using the purple in order to be, bright purple. I would dim all the other colors so that it becomes that. So, and again, I've also cheated by using colors, because the colors show you something that can show you this kind of threefold pattern of the figure. And that threefold pattern actually starts with the original pattern itself. So it's saying something about the reality is being captured, and it is being captured by that center. And it is being expressed in so many different ways. And that you can imagine yourself, he's saying, remember the quote where he's saying, imagine yourself, put yourself in the place of the seed germ. So you see, you can be here, or you can be here, or you can be here. The context around you will be slightly different. It will be in a different place, but you are going and doing exactly the same thing at each of these places. So that, with all the cheating, that's what I did.
That's excellent. Now, I do want to mention something else. This is a perfect time to bring up that quote of Sullivan's about the outside breaking in and the inside breaking out. And when you look at his blocks of stone, I think it starts with the outside breaking in. By the time you get to that 10th block or the 11th/27th block, it's more the inside breaking out, and you really have both sides. And that's what you were doing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Exactly. So it's like, you start with this, but the thing is that you have to start with the outside.
Yeah.
You have to start with existence. Okay, and you have to let that break in. So these are the triangles that are forming our existence breaking in. And then when you reach the center, then you have, kind of consciousness breaking out. And so it's the dance between existence and consciousness. The outward movement is your volition constructing things. The inward movement is your consciousness taking in from reality. Go ahead, Sherri.
Oh, I didn't have anything. I was just nodding.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Next up is Penny. Just a second. I want to make sure that you can unmute. Hold on. Yes, go ahead, Penny.
Okay. Well, I thought Rob's drawings were great. I started out, I'll say basically the same process, and I made it a little bit bigger. And I did like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it started to be like.
Hold on, Penny. Just a second. I need to unpin. Hold on.
Oh.
Let me do that. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, there it is. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Penny.
Okay. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we
yeah.
could hear you.
Oh, okay. And then I started looking at it, and it was like, like with the planes and stuff, it was like, gee, when I look at the big one down below, it doesn't kind of match up with, especially around like start 7. And it was hard to see anyway, because I kept looking for those photographs that we had been promised. I couldn't find them. So anyway, I said, I'm just going to go from step 7 and to the plate 11. I do like to draw anyway, and see, and kind of look what he's doing and do that. So anyway, here's my
Very nice.
Just hold on. Let me go ahead and pin so that people can see it. Go ahead. Wow.
Anyway, so I did since I couldn't see the others, I went to step 11. I used my ruler a lot.
Yeah, you need to.
And then I thought, gee, this like drafting tools, which I'm more of a drawer, although I don't draw much lately. But, I could see where, you could use some more precise tools. And then I had to go, like, I saw the circles, so I had to go, like, find a vitamin jar that had a lid.
That's excellent.
Tool we used to have in math that you could make circles. If I had one of those.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I found some jars and things like that. But I did it over several different days, and I really kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The process, and but I also was thinking from the viewpoint of somebody who's creating something that somebody else has to make, like he's drawing this design, and then somebody is going to actually cut this into the rock.
Mm-hmm.
The precision and the thinking that has to go into it is really quite incredible to think of it that way. And then I could kind of see where, as you went further on after the first steps, and I just did it all on one, where it was getting much more like whimsical. The beginning steps were all more geometric, and then it began to be little kind of vine things that were twisting in and out. You could see kind of little flowers. And I thought, oh boy, I wonder next week if we're going to have the assignment to do it on our own, make our own type idea. Anyway, that's what I did.
It's beautiful.
So I just stepped kind of to step 11 because it was easier to see.
Yeah.
And kind of look at the process. But I thought Rob's was really good when I saw the shading and stuff like that of the way the blocks interlaid. I just could not see exactly what was going on in these little tiny blocks. So I just jumped to the one I could see more.
Yeah, it is a little difficult. And by the way, just so that you understand, when Sullivan would draw something like that, in the industry, it's an architectural drawing will happen, and then it is passed on to whoever is making it. If it's metalsmith, if it's casting of wrought iron, if it's cut in stone, then the shop that is actually going to cut it or create it, carve it, whichever it is, they'll do what they call a shop drawing that has to then be approved by the architect. So and again, that happens because everybody knows that if you're going to create it out of something, some material, you've got to be able to draw it to understand it in order to then create it. So there is another step from Sullivan's drawings to whoever has to create it, the stonemason or the metalworker or whatever. They would do essentially a duplicate of that work to get it in their own head in order to create it.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
So kind of the process you're asking us to do too, that even as an artist, like a person who creates it, they have to go through this process themselves.
Yep.
So they can see it and visualize it and internalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Penny, I just wanted to comment on one comment that you made, which was really intriguing, is that, after you've done so much, then suddenly it becomes whimsical, and suddenly it kind of, it looks, you can start seeing kind of flowers and all kinds of things, leaves in that, vines like that. That's actually the heart of how Sullivan's method is. That it's not a bug, it's a feature. That's really the core of the method of, kind of focusing on the function, getting the kind of mastery of the existence. And once you have done that, adding the spirit to it. So the beauty kind of flows out of mastery of existence, of design. So wonderful. Thank you. And next up is Jeannie. Jeannie, go ahead.
Well, I did the first one without looking at Sullivan. So, but let me see here. I wanted to see if I could switch my camera. Oh, no. Oh, here. Yeah. So, one thing to remember is how at that time, Sullivan and the other, designers, architects, they used tracing paper, and even the vellum, you can see through it. So you're always using layers on layers, and that's how, that will help you. But this is just cheap paper. So I did first the geometrical part, which is just, a square and circles, and I'm nothing here beyond that. And then I made it dark so that I could trace over. And then I added the more organic part.
Nice.
With little fire, little bugs and flowers and stuff.
I love it.
And little eyeballs. And then, like Shrikant, I'm not happy with a square, so I wanted to do a pentagon. And in this one, let me see if I can go a little further. I used the pentagon, and then I used a curve that's called a catenary, which is the shape of a hanging chain. Now, whatever's hanging has to have some weight to it, but it's a perfect curve that's very predictable. And so I made a few catenaries to do that. And I hadn't done the second layer, making it organic, but I was thinking what Evanik had brought up last time about seeing bodies and stuff. And I mean, wouldn't that make some perfect pregnant women sort of all entwined or something? So that's what I did with that. But I one of the things I really totally lost was the 3D thing. And I was thinking of getting out my markers and, doing colors. So it's because when you walk away from what the assignment is, and you forget what it was. So thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
One of the things I really want to point out here is this would have been Sullivan's thing, that and he mentions this in kindergarten chats, every individual's ideas are going to come out differently. There isn't meant to be an exact replica. These are supposed to be forming individually, naturally, as it should happen, because of each of us comes from a different individual seed germ, individual place, and it will grow in a different way of what's more important to us. Is it the seed pod, or is it the flower? Is it the leaf, or is it the stem? Each one of us is gonna, or is it the geometry of it? Each one of us is gonna bring our own to that.
Thank you. Next up is Rupali.
Well, these are all just beautiful creations. And Shrikant, when you showed the 3D printed prism pyramid, that's, it has, when Sullivan talks about integrity of the form, it has its own integrity and it's true to itself. And this is a good example of saying how it's true to itself, because the form has developed within itself with its own identity. And Ginny and Penny, fantastic drawings, just beautiful. Ginny, what you showed with the Pentagon is there's a Montessori material called the metal insets, and students draw that. Anne Frank so Anne Frank was a Montessori student, and there are some collections of her work that you can see that are similar from the material called metal insets in the Montessori classroom. Maybe next time I can look for those and share those. Thank you.
I also want to say Rob's drawings, I didn't know he could do that. So it's wonderful. You learn something about friends every time, so that's great.
I didn't know I could do it. So that we discovered that together.
Wonderful. All right. Sherri, do you have any closing comments? Do you want to talk about what's next?
Well, we kind of really focused, I think, the main thing on plate 1. It really needed its own full session. I'd like for people to start, several of you already have, exploring that idea of starting with your own shape. If you go to plate 2, Sullivan is starting with leaf shapes. And I thought I heard Rupali mention some idea of a project that we were to start with a leaf shape. So I'm keying up to Rupali to see if she wants to give the next assignment.
Yeah, so last time I said, go out in nature and observe objects in nature and look at them. And this is the perfect season to go look at leaves. So go out, look at leaves, bring different shapes of leaves. There's a variety of them, and Louis Sullivan in these plates has just put a few. But you can find different types of leaves, bring them, draw the outline, observe them, see what their form is, their veins. You might make a naturalist, realistic drawing of the leaf, and you can then take that form and make it into an abstract form by following the plates that Louis Sullivan has. And then we can see what comes of that organic shape. So we took the stone, which was an inorganic material, and brought it to life. And now we'll take an organic form, the leaf, and see how that can be manifested into our own creations.
Wonderful. I have to say that this series is going so well, and I'm so grateful to Sherri and Rupali, who have got tremendous amount of experience with it, and also to, Rob and Penny and Jeannie, who are bringing whatever have. I think Jeannie has a big background in art. I'm sure Penny has been doing art for some time, and just seeing how they approach, or somebody like Rob or me, we are relatively less focused on art. So to see that as well. So it's really amazing to see, because it's the same principle, right? I mean, it's just talking about creation, and you create with what you can create, and you create with what materials you have. It's like, what can you do with what you have? And what it is going to show is going to be very different, as Sherri was pointing out. So it's just wonderful to be going through this book with all of you. So thank you so much. All right, we'll see you in a week. I want to tell you about a very interesting meetup taking place tomorrow. This is based on the work of Christopher Alexander. This gentleman, he lives in DC, and the big building next door was demolished, and it was going to take 3 years for the person who owned that lot to get the permits, etc., to build again. So a whole bunch of people from the neighborhood went to this developer and said, can you let us have this area for the next 2 years or 3 years, so we can build a community garden and an outdoor classroom for anybody who wants to learn things and all kinds of activities. And he used ideas of Christopher Alexander to design that space and has been running it for the past 2.5 years. I think the D-Day is coming up soon in fall when it's going to go back to development. So I wanted to have him come and take us through this garden that he has built and talk about what he did and what the experience was, not only from the architectural perspective, but from the community perspective. Because Christopher Alexander has ideas about how do you design shapes? How do you design architecture for interaction between people? How do you build different spaces for that? All of that. So it should be very interesting. It's going to be tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you could make it, that'll be great. All right, folks, see you soon. Bye.
Bye.